Um, yes, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar today. This is a very exciting and informative webinar that we look forward to. Today's topic is young people's participation in sports for development. And we have some truly incredible speakers lined up today. Uh, and I'm definitely very excited to hear from all of them. I would just request my colleagues Naman and Priyansh to maybe pin our guests. And before we dive in, a quick reminder to, for everybody to please go on mute. And we will be taking questions and answers later in our 30-minute slot. So we can do that. Uh, and at the same time, I would like to introduce our guest today. Our first guest is Molshri. Molshri Kalotia is from Piramal Foundation and she's a program director at Piramal Foundation and she leads the Center of Excellence for Physical Literacy, where her role is to introduce a physical literacy lens to teaching and learning practices of physical education in government school system. Molshri has an MBA from Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, and a master's in psychology. She loves playing games, is a purple belt in Shotokan Karate, and is a big advocate of Kheloge Kudoge Banoge Lajawab. Welcome, Molshri. We are really glad to have you here.
Thank you, Divya.
Yes. Our next guest for today is Sai Krishna Pullari. Sai is director at Anantapur Sports Academy. Sai is a passionate sports person and is deeply committed to leveraging the transformative power of sports to inspire and empower rural youth in India. With a master's degree in sports management from Coventry University, UK, he brings a wealth of experience in grassroots sports, youth development, and event management, honed across international locations, including the UK, Russia, and India. Welcome, Sai. Do we have Sai here?
Thank you, Divya. Yeah, I was just trying. Thank you.
Next, we have Uma. Uma leads the Learning for Life program at Pratham Education Foundation that focuses on building 21st century skills, promoting physical, mental well-being, and creating environmental consciousness. Prior to joining Pratham, Uma has worked as a college lecturer and media professional. She currently leads the Pratham and DSF fitness program in 350 villages across 3 states. Uma is also a karate black belt and an international silver medalist. Welcome, Uma.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have Kshitij. Kshitij is my colleague and Kshitij is the Vice President, Project Chhalang at Dani Sports Foundation. Project Chhalang, through its program, reaches out to more than 4 lakh students in almost 2,600 schools across 9 states in India. Project Chhalang also runs a full-time residential fellowship program called Sports for Transformation Fellowship for young people who are passionate about sports for development. He has an extensive experience of working in sports for development and education domain for the last 15 years. He is the co-founder of Art of Play Foundation and is also the alumni of Gandhi Fellowship Program. Hi, Kshitij.
Hi, thank you, Divya. Hello, everyone.
Last but not the least, we have Mridul, who is going to moderate today's session. Mridul Kataria is the Chief of Staff at the Sports and Society Accelerator. He has more than 5 years of academic and field experience in the sports and social change sectors across Europe and India. Having previously worked at UNHCR and at the International Platform for Sports for Development, he holds a Master's in Development Studies from the Graduate Institute in Geneva, where he specialized in sports and social inclusion. He is also a published author with a journal article published in the Journal of Sports in Society. Hello, Mridul.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
All right. I think with this, I hand this over to Mridul, who will be moderating this, and we look forward to some incredible conversations in next 50 minutes. Yeah, thanks, Melvin.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the introductions, Divya, and great to see everyone here. Good morning from wherever you are joining us. Before we begin, may I ask Priyansh or one of the DSF colleagues to sort of spotlight all the speakers so that everyone can see who's joining us and who will be speaking throughout the conversation. If you could do that in the next 30 seconds, that would be really helpful. We're just waiting for Sai now. Yep, there we see Sai. Great. Thank you so much. And again, once again, good morning, everyone. It's very exciting to have a group of great practitioners amongst us and also see a lot of young people show an interest in joining this webinar. I will just quickly run through what our discussion is going to look like. And this webinar will be in English, although the speakers are more than welcome to speak in Hindi as well, in case you feel like mixing it up. So the webinar will be in English, but आप हिंदी में भी थोड़ा सा बात कर सकते हैं in case you feel it's required. And we were going to run through a few questions with our esteemed panel today, talking about their experiences, their organizations, how and why they use sport, and get a lot of interesting insights on what is it, how young people are involved in this ecosystem, and not just as participants, but also as practitioners, as creators, as those who are actively building this ecosystem. But before we begin, I would like to hand it over to Kshitij for a quick presentation on some of the context of our webinar today, what has brought us together, and sort of partially the reason for our conversation. Kshitij, over to you.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Mridul. Don't have a presentation as such. We'll just quickly maybe introduce why we are here today, and specifically because Dani Sports Foundation has been exploring around the idea of a fellowship program for young people who are interested to get into the sports for development space. The fellowship program is called Sports for Transformation Fellowship. We have a few of our current fellows also. I see them in the audience there. So this fellowship program we started in June 2022, where the idea was to get young people who have been athletes themselves, who have been passionate about sports and are looking for opportunities to take sports beyond themselves playing, right? To take it to the communities, to take it to the children who don't have access to play, to learn the practices of how inclusive, fun, and learning sports practices can be developed, and what could be the role of these young people that in doing that, and that is the program we have been building for the last couple of years, and we have about 20 fellows, including 2 cohorts as of now. And yeah, we are now looking for starting our 3rd cohort this year. And that's where we thought of an idea to get uh, people from other organizations, especially who work with young people on the idea of sports for development. Sai, of course, Anandpur Sports Academy has been doing that over the years. And Pratham and Piramal Foundation both have been trying to integrate that into their core education programs. And again, Piramal Foundation has been running this program called Gandhi Fellowship, though not specifically with the idea of sports for development, but of course, participation of young people into the overall development space. So we just thought that to use this opportunity to come together and maybe explore the idea where we can see how different organizations are engaging with young people like encouraging them to take part in the sports for development activities of their organizations. I think that is that is essentially why we are here. And yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Great. No, thank you for that, Shritish. And I think you were very right in pointing out that the ecosystem is very large and we are using a bunch of different things. For example, an ASA has started out with sport as the primary approach and using sport then and integrating life skills, for example, and we'll hear all about this from Sai in a bit, versus a Piramal Foundation or Pratham talking about using life skills, using education already from before, and then integrating sports and physical literacy. So I think let's get started on this. And I would like each of us to spend a couple of minutes talking about how our organization approaches this topic. How are you how do you locate yourselves in this sport for development ecosystem? And I think let's start with I'll say let's start with the oldest entrant in terms of the organization. Let's start with Sai. Not to reveal anyone's age.
Thank you, Mridul. Yeah, firstly, yeah, thanks to DSF making this webinar possible. I think we are in the right direction, and we need these kind of platforms to continue the momentum, particularly in the sport and development ecosystem in India. So thank you, and thanks, Mridul. Quickly getting in with the intro. Anantapur Sports Academy, as mostly everyone is aware about the program, it's known as ASA, but it's actually an initiative by an NGO called Rural Development Trust, RDT, which is the main founding organization based in Anantapur, which has been operating since 1969. And organization has been working across multiple sectors. It could be women, disability, ecology, habitat, education. But sport always had its main importance right from the early years. Let's say from late 70s, sport had its own space within the organization's activities. One, because already the organization working with children in the space of education, the organization believed that sport would be a great way to bring all these children together who are coming from different villages. We are talking about late 70s, when not much movement is happening from village to village, children not moving around, and because of existing social classes, issues at that moment. From then on, though organization was using sport in a very passive manner, it was only in 2000 finally Anantapur Sports Academy was started. And since then, there's been an intentional use of sport as a tool for social change in the rural areas where we are working. And to achieve that, we focus on three main elements, which are part of our approach. One is access, second one is educate, third one is empower. Access, it's mostly focused on ensuring every child has access to their fundamental right to play, which we are in this field, that's what we are all working towards, ensuring that children don't have any barriers in accessing opportunities. In this case, it's sport participation. Once that access is created, we will ensure that the facilitator or the coach or the PE teacher is ensuring through the sport participation, children are getting to learn life skills, learn values, and also use this opportunity to raise awareness on the social issues that we see in our daily life, in our neighborhoods or in our villages. And finally, the empower part, which is very much related to the Sport for Transformation Fellowship. Why we started focusing on this area is also because in India, we don't see a clear pathway right from 6 years till 22 years. Those who are practicing or those who are part of sport. Forget about elite level, but also just to be part of sport, to be physically active. That's where the youth leadership program comes in, where those children who have played till 16, 17 years are encouraged to volunteer in their own clubs in their villages, where they have opportunity to build the key leadership skills, which will help them to further transition either into a sports career or also a non-sports career. So in a nutshell, this is the approach: access, educate, empower. And currently the program is reaching around 14,000 children across 113 clubs with the support of 270 plus youth leaders, which who are the main actors in this program actually. So with this, yeah, I conclude my brief intro. Thank you, Mridul.
Great, thank you, Sai. And let's take it to Moulshri to talk about what are the core tenets of PFES programs. We heard from Sai talking about access, educate, empower. What are the core tenets that drive PFES programming, especially with sport, but also beyond that?
Yeah, thanks, Mridul. So I think I will start from what Kshitij mentioned in the introduction, like how Piramal Foundation and Pratham, for that matter, have been core education focused foundations who have now kind of recognized that sport is a tool that you have to use for educational outcomes. So that is like that is one movement that you could see, that there is recognition in the ecosystem that we have to use sport for educational outcomes. That's one. Now at Piramal Foundation, I lead the Center for Physical Literacy, and just to kind of give the audience a little bit of about these different words, because sometimes they can be a bit confusing. So when you say sport for development, it's basically the intentional use of sport or physical activity or play, or and also. So it could be sport and physical activity and play to actually achieve some developmental outcomes. They could be around health, they could be around life skills, they could be around leadership skills, 21st century skills. So that is what sport for development is. Why we call it physical literacy? Because physical literacy is not limited to sports. It's inclusive of sports. So physical literacy is a broader concept where you say that you have to develop a relationship with movement, and you have to develop that connection for life. Now, what could be the modes to build it? Sport could be a mode to build it. Yoga could be a mode to build it. Dance could be a mode to build it. Martial arts could be a mode to build it. And therefore, the programming has to be broad-based, which includes all this. So what we're trying to really do at Piramal Foundation in the Center of Physical Literacy is create a programming that includes a wide variety of modalities, and then take it to schools. Now, the other distinctive part that I think, we heard from Sai how they are directly working with children. At Piramal, we work in the classrooms and we work with the government. So that really is our theory of change, that we have to actually work with the government and empower them to kind of bring changes in the classroom. So we would work with the NCRTs, with the state SCRTs, with the diets, with everyone who's involved in the government education system, and empower them also. So when you ask us that, what do you do in your Center of Physical Literacy, we would say we are trying to develop physical education teachers. We are trying to develop master facilitators who understand what is the physical literacy lens to physical education. We are trying to be on committees that are writing physical education curriculum, and we are also in classrooms. So that in short, a little bit of what Piramal Foundation does and how it approaches physical literacy and sports and physical activity.
Great, thank you, Moulshri. And Uma, coming from a similar background in terms of approaching it first from education, how has the journey been with sport? And how do you use sport and physical activity, as Moulshri pointed out? It's not just about organized sport; it can be about any kind of play.
Right.
So how do you use sports and play and physical activity at Pratham's programs?
Am I audible? Perfect. First of all, thank you to Kshitij and to DSF team for organizing this and calling me and being one of the panelists. What Sai said, the fundamental right to play. I think I was one of those students in school who always fought for our fundamental right to play and never let any math or science teacher hijack our PE period. So I was very well known for that in school. And I'm very happy that I get to lead something at Pratham as well. So I lead a domain called Learning for Life, which, like Divya mentioned in the introduction, focuses on promoting 21st century skills, developing 21st century skills, promoting physical and mental well-being, and creating environmental consciousness among children and youth. So we mainly work with 10 to 14-year-old children and 14 and above youth. I know the definition of youth would change for every person or every organization, but we like to believe that even a 15-year-old is capable of leading younger students and leading by example. Pratham this year celebrates its 30th year of existence, and we have played an impactful role in transforming the education system with our high impact and low cost models. I would like to focus for today's discussion, I would like to focus on a couple of programs or interventions that use sport or physical education, as Molatri put it. And I'll start with one very organically grown sports program within Pratham, which started in the remote villages of West Champaran district in Bihar to address a crucial issue of absenteeism in class, dropouts from schools, and very low foundational numeracy and literacy levels, right? One of the biggest challenges that our team over there faced was how do we make children wait back after school to even interact with them or start any kind of remedial program. And one person called Sumit Pandey, who's our employee, came up with the idea of let's try out sports. So it actually started as an experiment to play some games after school hours to ensure or to encourage children to stay back after hours and have some kind of interaction with Pratham staff, forget about FLN learning or forget about remedial learning. And what started as an experiment with in about 13 schools with a handful of boys, today is a full-fledged Bihar nursery or a sports nursery program where more than 450 students come on the ground and play every day and play a variety of sports from kabaddi to football to athletics to even weightlifting, things that our team was well comfortable with. And along with the improvement in academic success, we have seen that our players have succeeded at several sports competitions as well, right from your inter-school to national levels. And an interesting part is today, this ratio, girls outnumber boys by 70:30 ratio. So we have maximum girls from tribal background playing on the ground every single day. And Pratham has been working with DSF to now structure this program well to empower our own staff members and look at it as a talent identification and nurturing program. So this is quite a proud program for us. It has inspired us to also try out a fitness program in about 350 villages across the states of Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, and Jharkhand. That's the program that I directly lead. And like Molatri was saying, here the focus is not on any one particular sport or to even build sports talent, but rather use or through the means of fitness and 1 hour play every day. How do you ensure more physical activity? How do you ensure play equity? How do you develop leadership skills, not just among children, but also among the youth? And can community ownership help in building a grassroots level program? So this is more a community and a school-based intervention. And our key stakeholders are village youth, school teachers, and interestingly, group leaders who are part of the same cohort, who are part of the same, they're also students of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but they have been identified as group leaders to take charge and lead the group in the absence of teachers or youth volunteers. So NEP talks about the National Education Policy, talks about a no bag day. Now, what do you actually do on a no bag day? So one of the solutions or one of the offerings is, can you integrate sports and can you let children play something? Interestingly, the fitness program also includes dance as a movement and as a means of, a lot of cardiovascular exercise. So we are looking at it. One last point that I would like to make is this fitness program is part of Pratham Digital, Prodigy Innovation Center. So we are very well looking at the integration of technology, use of AI or use of digital intervention and content in making this a scalable model. So right from your dissemination of activities to data collection to evaluation, use of technologically enabled solutions is what we are also looking at. So yeah.
Great, thank you, Uma. And we're hearing about so many sports. So before we go to Kshitij, In fact, given that there are so many young people who have joined us today, I would like the attendees or all those who are here to write your name, your organization, and your favorite sport in the chat box. And at the end of the at the end of the webinar, we'll see which is the sport or physical activity that is the most popular. So I invite everyone, अगर आप इस वेबिनार को अटेंड कर रहे हैं तो आपका नाम, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और आपका फेवरेट स्पोर्ट प्लीज जरा चैट बॉक्स में लिखिए, और इफ यू हैव एनी क्वेश्चंस फॉर द पार्टिसिपेंट्स, अगर आपके कोई भी सवाल हैं उसे भी चैट बॉक्स में लिखिए. Moulshri,
मृदुल, आई वांट टू ऐड कि आपका फेवरेट स्पोर्ट और फिर नीचे आप कौन सा स्पोर्ट खेलते हैं.
हाँ, so your favorite sport and the sport you most frequently play, जिसका आपको सबसे ज़्यादा मौका मिलता है खेलने का. तो please, I would request all our attendees to start doing that while we also hear from Kshitij. Kshitij, as you know, as DSF, you partner with both PFEL, with both Piramal Foundation and with Pratham Education Foundation, providing a lot of support on the sports aspect of it. So how does the sport for development, and if you could give a overview of what DSF does, but also how does sport for development, yeah, sport for social impact figure in your operations, if you could shed some light on that.
Great. Sure, Mil. Thanks. So I think Sai, Moulshri, and Uma have kind of summed up it really nicely. One, Sai has with his Access, Educate, Empower framework, and then Uma and Moulshri mentioned how within the education framework, how can we integrate sports or say physical activity, physical literacy, physical education, all those terminologies into how learning outcomes can be developed through physical activity, right? So that's the broad area that all of us kind of fall into. And even at DSF, why I'm saying all this is that even at DSF, the idea again started with the right to play of every child, uh, uh, irrespective of where they come from, which school they are studying in, what background they are from. So, so the idea, and then going ahead, we started developing a curriculum that can be integrated into existing education framework. So, can a physical activity class, which Uma really wanted as a student, and I'm sure there are many such students in schools today who really want to be part of the physical education class. So what is going to happen in that class? If it is a 45 minute class and there are 40 students in a classroom, what is going to happen with all those 40 students for those 40 minutes? That is the idea we kind of started exploring and designing a curriculum around that. And that was that is rather our, solution to providing access to physical activity for all children. And we started working with the government schools to do that. That is part of the Project Chalang, or the physical literacy vertical of Dani Sports Foundation. But at the same time, as DSF, we also work to develop high performance ecosystem in the country, right from identifying athletes to supporting athletes to working with government agencies and private agencies, private organizations to build an ecosystem that one will help develop athletes, but also to help develop the systems themselves. What are the different support systems that are required for athletes to perform at the highest stage, and how can DSF be part of those ecosystems? So these two essentially are the verticals where DSF operate. One is called Project Chalang, which is largely sports for development, physical activity at the grassroots for all children. It looks like, and developing the high performance systems for athlete performance. Now, what we are essentially trying to do is build a bridge between these two. So these are not in a sense in isolation, right? What Sai also mentioned. There is a framework, access, educate, empower. So there is a framework of access where all the children are playing, and there is a idea where some of them are competing at the highest level. What is going to happen in between? And can all of us as an ecosystem develop that system where that nurturing, that identification of talent is happening and what is going to happen to the children, to the people who are not going to grow into becoming athletes, but still can physical activity help them learn certain skills that are going to be helpful for their life going ahead. So those are the ideas that we explore at DSF, and then we do that with two, three approaches. One, like I said, partnering with organizations and partnering with government ecosystems, and then DSF chipping in with whatever skill, knowledge, experience that we have over the years. So that within that, I think, like I already mentioned in the beginning, is where we kind of also started this fellowship program to bring in or create a platform for young people to get into the sports for development ecosystem. So I think that is broadly what we do with DSF. Yeah.
Great, great. Thank you, Kshitij. And if I were to piece together the first round of our conversation, it seems like when we talk about the sport for development ecosystem, it has many, many different facets. There are organizations who are using sports as a primary intervention, and there are organizations who are using other interventions and adding sports onto it. So if you could say there is a sports plus element where sports is being used as the primary intervention to teach life skills, to access, educate, empower, and then there is a plus sport where education or the classroom is the primary goal and the area of intervention, where you're adding sport alongside other interventions, adding sport and physical activity. So when we look at this ecosystem, it has all the organizations who use sports plus other things, or other things plus sport. And then you have the government, you have schools, you have communities who are parts and areas of intervention. And I've also received a request to sum up some of our conversation also in Hindi, so I will try my best to do that. So ये जो स्पोर्ट फॉर डेवलपमेंट इकोसिस्टम है, इसमें प्रथम, पिरामल, दानी स्पोर्ट्स, अनंतपुर स्पोर्ट्स एकेडमी जैसी संस्थाएं हैं जो खेल कूद को क्लासरूम में, खेल कूद को क्लासरूम के बाहर अलग अलग चीज़ों और अलग अलग विषयों के लिए इस्तेमाल करते हैं. I know my Hindi is a bit broken, so I will apologize for that. And तो ये जो संस्थाएं हैं, ये सब इस स्पोर्ट फॉर डेवलपमेंट इकोसिस्टम को बनाती हैं. And then I also see a lot of different sports coming into our chat box. Lots of cricket, lots of football, lots of badminton. I think badminton बहुत ही popular खेल है हमारे audience के लिए. Someone is also running late for meetings. I think that is the unfortunate reality that a lot of us who've had to forego sport are faced with. So when we talk about this ecosystem and piece together that there are many, many different sports, how is it that you have seen it change over the last few years, over the years you have been in it, or as those who have been outside it but have become a part of it? How have you seen it change? We'll start with Sai again for obvious reasons, because again, I think as an organization they've seen it the longest, but I know you've been, I think roughly all of us have very similar timelines of the last 5 to 10 years of having entered this field. So from an organizational perspective, Sai, how have you seen it change over the last few years?
Yeah, from excuse me, from an organizational point of view, for us, the intentional usage of sport for wider development goals has been increasing year on year, because sport for development as a field in India has been on the rise only in the last decade or so. Before that, it was many individuals or organizations or founders of those organizations who had that strong belief that sport actually plays a positive role, or it brings many benefits to a wider society. The programs were operating more on those lines. So in the last 10 years, from an organization point of view, what we have seen is the intentional use of sport for the wider development goals has been on the rise. Overall in the field, if we can see, as part of the intentional use, what we have noticed is, which is also very, in my opinion, which is very resembling the wider field of sport for development as well, which is in the early years, youth used to play the role of, just participants, like just play sport more as a beneficiaries. I think you or someone has rightly touched right at the beginning. Youth were mostly seen as beneficiaries, as an end, like recipient kind of thing, in the first era of the Millennium Development Goals, if we talk about the MDGs. But when it came to the Sustainable Development Goals from 2015 till 2030, in these part of the goals, what the big change is, youth are no mere participants as sport participants, but they are the delivery actors. That's one of the biggest changes that we all have seen. And all the organizations have also acknowledged it, because their programs are now designed in such a way that youth are actually delivering the programs. It's not like one, somebody who has done masters or, PhD, and they are coming back with some certificates and delivering the program. It's actually the youth from their own villages, from their own communities, thanks to, it could be Sport for Transformation fellowship programs, or it could be from their own organizations. They might have gone through the whole process, playing sport, growing, and then they want to give back something to the community. They've gone through this journey. So that's how youth have grown from mere participants to the actual delivery partners. One is the part of the role of youth. The second change, I would say, or evolution, I would say, is in the first phase of those 15 years from 2000 to 2015, you can see that in an effort to promote gender equality, there have been more and more gender exclusive programs. Yeah, more like focused on only promoting girls. With that, we thought like we're going to reach that equality status. But there have been learnings from that to affect that cultural change or behavioral change. Right from a young age, you need to start creating equitable opportunities for both boys and girls, not gender exclusive programs. So that's why in the last 7-8 years or so, again, since SDGs have come on, more and more mixed gender events have come up. And if you're not wrong, in India now, Ultimate Frisbee is picking up a lot, because the mixed gender is not just restricted to under 8, under 10, under 12. Even at the adult level, more and more mixed gender events are coming up. So this platform where you create equitable opportunities for both boys and girls will give a great opportunity, will provide a great opportunity for everybody to accept each other as we are, and to respect each other, and also consider us as equals. So these are the two big shifts that I have seen, and also we have incorporated into our programs over the last 9-10 years or so, since 2015.
Thank you, Sai, and we'll touch on the role of the youth, I think, extensively in the next section. So thank you for shedding light on that. But Uma and Moshri, would you, as those who've been in this sector for relatively more recently, would you agree with this? How do you think in the last 2 years you have seen in your conversations a lot of this change, or has it? To what extent do you think it has changed, or has been added upon to? I'll let either of you kick us off.
So I will kind of double down on what Sai said, which is one of the things that we at Piramal concentrate in our programming of physical literacy is mixed gender. So we actually look, it is one of our impact measures that our mixed gender playing happy. So that's I would say that, and it is happening because you see a lot of women participation increasing. So that's one trend I would say that's probably changed, or it's kind of positive now. The other thing is, I think I'm relatively young in this sector, but I think that it has gone from one sport to multi-sport. So it's no more like a cricket obsessed country, but we are actually playing multiple sports, right? And this league thing has actually kind of unleashed, the IPL unleashed a lot of other leagues. So you have Kabaddi League and you have Kho-Kho League, and so that I think has also kind of there's been a lot of momentum in the sector around it, which is actually just creates a momentum for play of different sports. The third, I think, the policy, like the national sports policy, just got revised after 25 years. And it has started, and the national education policy has started recognizing sports. So that is another change. I mean, kind of momentum building thing that you see, that now at all forums and in all policies also sport is being recognized. So those are three things. I would also like to talk a little later about Gandhi Fellowship, because Kshitij is a Gandhi Fellow. And Piramal runs this, I think it's been 15 years that we've been running this fellowship, and we have about 3,000 Gandhi Fellows out there in the alumni. And it's exactly what Sai said, that we have been trying to work as youth as the change agents. So Gandhi Fellowship is that. It's that platform which actually gives an opportunity to the youth of this country to actually participate in the change on ground. So the physical literacy program that is run in Piramal is on ground, run by 20 Gandhi Fellows. And we can talk a little bit more about it later. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that bit in. And in our fellowship curriculum, physical activities and games have played a major role, which probably Kshitij can also talk about, that how Frisbee has helped him become a better professional, or how fellowship days Frisbee was was an important learning tool. And we continue to do that.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Moshi. Go ahead, Uma.
Yeah, I think Molashri and Sai have already covered a lot of the points. I am a bit too young in this field to talk about the change which has happened over the years, but I absolutely agree with the points that they have raised. I think it is also, there's a mind shift, either a need of it or it has already started, of looking at what education truly means, right? Are we going to simply use sports or physical movement as a means to achieve quote unquote academic success? Or are we looking at sports and physical education as an integral part of holistic development? And within Pratham also, this shift has happened. Learning for Life domain is an example or a result of the same. The other thing that I see happening and definitely needs to be expedited is the need for alliances and partnerships, right? Because there are multiple organizations working in the same sector. If we all join hands and share knowledge, share experiences, I think the impact will be much bigger, much better. I agree with youth being the agents of change and the actual, our hands and legs at the community level. That's where the community ownership of the program also comes in. And we have seen that happen over the years. Right now, I have just this much to add, but I can, in the following conversations, I'll add more anecdotes and share some experiences.
Super. Thank you, Uma. But yes, I think what we've seen is a mind shift which has led to more organizations who didn't traditionally use sport, using sport. More organizations who have come just to use sport and sort of use sports and play as a primary intervention, and which has led to more sports coming in, more kind of approaches, outcomes. So it has been diversifying multifold over the years. Kshitij, as someone who's, let's say, worn different hats in the sector, how do you sort of contextualize all this change for us?
I think I am part of the lot that started an organization only to use sport as a medium of education. And of course, it started, like I said, from the idea of integrating physical activity, physical education into mainstream school education. So yes, that of course I have seen over the last 8-10 years, where a lot of organizations coming up to integrate, or rather to focus on sports for community development, for learning of children, for gender participation. So multiple ideas, and that has resulted into what all Sai, Molshri, and Uma has been saying. There has been a improved gender participation in physical activities. We see more, acceptance, more and more people talking about it. Life skills, I think around the same time, around 12-15 years ago, life skills started as a conversation in the education space, and then sports at the same time, and then the idea of marrying the two, whether sports can be used as a tool to learn life skills, learning for life, as what Uma has been talking about. So that is a big shift that has happened over 10, 15 years. Now, I don't know whether all of us are being biased because we are all talking about the same thing for the last 10 years, and you just keep hearing the same thing over and over again every day, and you meet the same kind of people. So probably, but yes, what that has done is that it brought at least all of these people together. So I know so many people doing so many different things over the last 8, 10 years. So that is one. And second, I think I'll again reiterate what Molshri said in a different ways, that uh, uh, sports has grown overall as an industry, as a professional space, right? One, the rise of the leagues after IPL and how that has picked up. And second, I think India's performance at the last two Olympics and generally how that has picked up the conversation around sports performance at the highest level and the adaptation of playing sports in general, therefore, is I think something that has really I have been seeing, and now I think being part of the DSF, where I also hear stories from the high performance or athletes point of view. I think I hear all of these things and how there has been an attempt at developing more robust systems to help athletes and support athletes to perform at the highest level. I think that has also been something that has happening for the last 5, 7 years. So yeah.
Great. I think that's a great segue. And in fact, I'll go back to Molshri, which you start talking about the Gandhi Fellowship. When we talk about the roles that young people play in our programs and organizations, of course, one of them being the fellowship. How is it that the young people, who are a lot of them who are listening to us, I think, to our webinar today and to our conversation, and perhaps will also, if the recording goes out, more people will be sort of hearing. What are the different kinds of roles that young people play in the organization? Obviously the participants of the programs, but what are the different dimensions of these roles? Moshe, if you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, thanks, Mridul, for asking that. So, if specifically I have to talk about Piramal Foundation, you apply to, let's say, Gandhi Fellowship. It's a 22-month fellowship program, where you would probably work with the particular interventions. We have various interventions across socio-emotional ethical learning, physical literacy, aesthetic literacy, and you actually get to work on the ground in the villages, in the schools, and with the community and with the government. So those are the kind of roles that you would play as a fellow. You would be going in the classrooms to conduct, let's say, a physical education class. You would also be working with the principal and with the physical education teacher and trying to see how you can influence without really having any authority, but how do you influence them to start looking at physical education with a new lens? Because the lens that most PE teachers have is that we need to prepare athletes. We need to get the medals. Now, how do you introduce the lens of participation, that you need to get everybody in the class to play, and that also should be part of your role, because everybody needs to be physically active. So how do you do that? How do you kind of influence? So you learn that as a fellow. You also interact with, as I said, the government stakeholders. So those are the kind of roles that you would do as a fellow. And one of the principles of Gandhi Fellowship is that you would experience a transformation in your own self because of the processes that Gandhi Fellowship would take you through. I was actually very happy to know, Mridul, that when you asked that question, what is your favorite sport? And then we added frequently play. A lot of people actually added that they frequently play this. So this is very, very good to note, but it's not representative of what's happening in India. I mean, if you look at the larger figures, people are extremely inactive and they are sedentary and they're not playing enough. So it's great that people are playing, and if anything out of this you can take out today, please ensure that you play. and you play frequently and you play actively. So yeah, so what I was trying to say is that, yeah, so you would go through that self-transformation also because you are working in this space. So when I speak to fellows, they say कि पहले हमको मतलब लगता था ये सब ना सिर्फ ऐसे बोलने की बातें हैं, आपको खेलना चाहिए और आपको फिजिकली एक्टिव होना चाहिए. But now we can actually feel that हम अगर physically active रहेंगे तो we will be able to actually do our work better. So that transformation they are also feeling because they are part of this program, part of this fellowship. They are doing it themselves. So yeah, those are the kind of roles. Does that kind of answer what you asked, that what kind of roles that they can play or expect to play?
Yes, in fact, I have a follow-up on that. I know Kshitij is a former Gandhi Fellow. Can you share examples of anyone else or you who you know who's entered the sport for development ecosystem as through the fellowship, or generally who you're working with now? Are there examples of young people who were part of the program and are now actively creating the program?
Kshitij. Kshitij is like shining. He was called for the alumni meet also, that you have to talk about how did you do this. Maybe Kshitij, if you want to. Kshitij is one example.
No, of course. I think it's been a while. It's been more than, I think, about 15 years when I joined Gandhi Fellowship for the first time. I agree that uh, it was an experience that I think added a lot to me as a person, kind of changed the course of how I was looking at life. And I'm sure there is definitely a pre-Gandhi Fellowship and post-Gandhi Fellowship, kind of pre-COVID, post-COVID kind of a situation in my life, of course. And I think uh, that is where the idea of, even at DSF, the idea of Sports for Transformation Fellowship came into being. When I said that, okay, Gandhi Fellowship exposed me to the idea of education and how that is, how right to education is for every child, and it is not really about whether you have access to good education. It is the right of every child to have access to good education. So as a system, we were designed to deliver that education to every child. So, so that idea kind of we started exploring, and then we realized that sports and physical activity is something that is missing from the whole education piece, and that is where we started the journey of Art of Play, and that's the story as it goes. But then, while we were doing that, we realized that there is a need for more and more young people to get into this space, uh, and not just with the idea of playing a sport themselves for their own growth or learning or benefit, but also whether they can be part of this journey of how sports can be used as a tool for the development of the communities, working with the children, and whether children are learning. And that is where the idea actually came into being of Sports for Transformation Fellowship, inviting people who have been playing sports or been passionate about sports themselves. And yeah, that is how my journey had started into this space. I used to play multiple sports as a kid in school, and then continued playing that during my young days. So yeah, I don't know whether I answered what you were asking, but
No,
you
no,
want to.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, the fellowship has been around for years. And there are, I think, given Pratham and ASA's background as well, they've been organizations who've been around for years. So, Uma, are there examples of people? I'm sure there are many who've gone through Pratham's programs and then become part of the organization and beyond. Are there any sports-specific examples that you could share possibly, or generally, how are some of the and those who are working on setting up the sports programs and the pilots that you're running, are there people who have previously been a part of the organization's programs and come from, let's say, Pratham's, let's say, vocational training? I know you work a lot in communities
Yeah.
and schools. What is the general way you involve young people, and are there some examples of that you currently see?
Sure. So right from its inception in 1995, in the slums of Mumbai when Pratham started. I think volunteer-based work has been an integral part of our organization. And we've been running something called as EFE, Education for Education, because these are unpaid volunteers. So for contributing to the betterment of your community and your neighborhood, there is something that Pratham offers you. It could be an upskilling program, it could be vocational skilling, it could be an English speaking course or certain such things, right? And this Education for Education has been a part of all programs in Pratham, whether it is related to FLN, whether it is related to early childhood or vocational skilling. And we integrated that into the fitness program as well. Because fitness program was completely new to us, we started with something called as the fitness or a sports survey of about 1,000 villages. Yesterday, the ASAR report of 2024 was released, and Jalaj Dani was one of the panelists, and he mentioned the need for a similar kind of ASAR related to physical education and well-being. So we did that on a much smaller scale in 1,000 villages, asking A, looking at the infrastructure available, and B, looking at people with some kind of sporting background. You would have played at the inter-school level or at the district level. And from these 1,000 villages, we got information of about nearly 1,500 people. And to our great surprise, even 2-3 players who had played at international level in different sports. So when looking at fellows or youth, we were not just looking at the age group, but also people with this kind of background. And for us, those are our sports fellows. So we have a couple of ex-army professionals who are now running, fitness programs in their community. We have youth who have played at inter-school level. We have those who don't necessarily have a background in sport, but are interested in sport or have good communication and leadership skills of bringing children together and facilitating certain activities. So that is definitely happening. Along with the transformation or the 21st century skills in children who are actually physically playing that game or dancing, we also see leadership skills being developed in these youth volunteers or fellows, right? Because they are involved in mobilization, they are involved in facilitation, they are involved in on-ground troubleshooting or problem solving, and certain kind of data collection or assessment as well. Another interesting point is that what adds to this confidence of the fellow is, in again referring to yesterday's ASAR report, out of the 15-16-year-old youth that was surveyed in ASAR, nearly 90% have access to some smartphone in their house. They may not be the owners of the smartphone, but they have smartphones at home. And this is rural population that we are talking about. And out of this, 80% showed basic technological literacy in terms of being able to browse something on Google or watch a video on YouTube or set an alarm, right? So how do we leverage this technology penetration and this confidence of using something as basic as your WhatsApp or YouTube to build the confidence and reach out to youth whom we may or may not meet physically or in person, right? So that has been, that aspect has been equally important to us, that how do we integrate technology in reaching out to more people and build on that confidence. One example from Bihar Sports Nursery, and I just mentioned it at the start, was that initially when we started, it was not called Sports Nursery, it had no name. It was basically one individual's effort to somehow get the students to stay back after school and interact with us, right? और तभी ज्यादातर लड़के स्पोर्ट्स खेला करते, लड़के रुका करते थे और खेला करते थे. तो हमने, given the background, given the demographics of that location, हमने ये कंपल्सरी नहीं किया है, हमने सामने से नहीं कहा कि लड़कियों को खेलना चाहिए. इनफैक्ट पहले 3-4 महीने सिर्फ लड़कों के साथ खेला, whatever sport was being played, और लड़कियों को कहा आप दूर से देखिए, बस आप देखिए. And after a point, they were so willing and so restless to play कि लड़कियां ही कहने आ गई कि हमको भी include कीजिए और हमको भी खिलाइए. Then for the next few months, it was separate play for boys and girls, and slowly then integrated or mixed play where the teams were mixed gender, right? So it was a long journey and it was a patient journey on our behalf as well. Interestingly, एक challenge जो आया था वो ये था कि to get girls into sporting gear. forget about branding, forget about Pratham का logo या ये सारी चीजें, आप बस शर्ट पैंट पहन के खेलिए या हाफ पैंट पहन के खेलिए. And I was just talking to somebody from the nursery program in the morning, and he said, "Ma'am, वहाँ पे एक किसी लड़की के father थे जो हमें मारने पे तुले थे because we made his daughter wear shorts for football, right? And that was a big situation कि आप लड़कियों को गलत कुछ सिखा रहे हैं. Girls were also not comfortable with it. But that same girl was part of our football team who went to Odisha for an interstate competition, won, and beat some other well-known team and came back. And the same father who was ready to like fight our staff member there is now our biggest advocate in that area, right? So it is, I mean, the role of community, the role of youth leadership that we are talking about. I think it's a slow journey. There are sometimes when you require hammering it down, there are at times you need to be more patient and थोड़ा integrate करके थोड़ा compromise करके आपको आगे बढ़ना होता है. But these are all great learning experiences. Yeah, just one last point about this youth involvement. Yeah, a lot of these youth volunteers or fellows who are connected with us in the fitness program, for them, they have some background in sport, but sport is definitely not a career option for them. They are not even currently active sports players. So when sports is not a career option, what are they aspiring to be? That was the second question that we asked in the survey. And majority of these youth volunteers, because it's a government job, they want to enter into police or army. पुलिस भर्ती या आर्मी भर्ती का तैयारी करना है, बट उसमें जो फिजिकल टेस्ट है, रनिंग का जो टेस्ट है, डोंट नो हाउ टू प्रिपेयर फॉर इट. So through this education for education program, what we are currently offering the fellows is a specialized training program on how to crack these physical tests for a police bharti or an army bharti program, right? Including girls and boys. So it is these kind of models that has helped us in the past. Of course, this is our learning from the rest of Pratham programs that we are now integrating into the sports intervention as well. But yeah, that was my addition to the conversation.
Great. Sai, I will give you a couple of minutes to talk about your journey as well, and we'll try to sum up the conversations before we take some of the questions that are already there. So yeah, how do you engage young people, and sort of what has been the work over the last 20 years? And have you seen how many of those who you worked with in the past have also now become a part of ASA programs or have become a part of sports programs outside of ASA?
No, in fact, we try to hold this as a highly, highly priority area. I mean, it's a very high priority area where let's say if you're talking about the success or the impact of the program is measured, this is an area that really defines whether your program has really contributed to the benefit of the children and youth. And like over these 20 years, we have had many participants who have gone through the journey of, playing sport and then evolving into a youth leader in the program. And then eventually many who have found an employment within the sports field, primarily as physical education teachers because of what is readily available with the government, because most of them prefer the government based jobs. So it starts with physical education teachers, and like Uma has shared, next is the police, army, all these fall in that, because these are all the, as they say, sarkari naukri, so they all fall in that bracket. But we have tried to diversify it as much as possible. We didn't want to let the youth do something out of not having any other option or choice. What we have learned over the last 10 years and tried to do, at least through the program activities, is let's try to diversify their opportunities as much as possible where they have a choice to make with autonomy, And how can we do that? Through these youth leadership programs where they're not just playing, but they have quality engagement opportunities as a volunteer coach, when they're a youth leader, and also they have exposure opportunities where they go to other programs, they spend time, they learn about how, for example, let's take a case of one of our current residential coaches by name Hindu. He was once, he came through the whole pathway. He was part of our grassroots program in one of the villages. And then back then, when the academy was doing selection trials, the PE teacher brought him, knowing the academy trials were happening in a paper. So he brought him to Anantapur. Back then, there was no proper relation between grassroots and the academy as well. So it came in the last 10 years. So he came, he got selected, and then he played well. He reached the national levels as well until the age of 17, 18. And so after that, he was thinking what to do. Whether should I go into only education or only sport-based career. But the idea of what we offer through youth leadership is continue your education, but also as you're passionate about sport, try to give your time in the morning or in the evening as a voluntary coach. He started giving his time and he started organizing mini festivals, sport-based or play-based festivals for the children in his villages. And he started growing in that journey. And finally, there was a point where he finished his graduation and he was deciding whether to take a career as a coach or continue again higher education. Finally, he has made a choice, made a decision to become a coach. At that moment, he was still not just working here, but we ensured that he is having a all-round experience. So he has gone outside Andhra Pradesh into areas where Telugu is not a local language, where he had to get that exposure to build that self-confidence and to be well prepared, for the greater opportunities that are available. So eventually, through these exposures and the learning opportunities that were available at Anantapur Sports Academy, he has grown and is now one of the certified coaches at All India Football Federation and Asian Football Confederation. And now he's heading one of the teams in the residential academy. So like that, there are multiple who have gone through these journeys, and either they're working with Anantapur Sports Academy or in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, which are the nearby cities which offer plenty of opportunities through sport and play. So having said that, we are very fortunate on one side and very proud also to say that the whole Anantapur Sports Academy is actually now managed and led by the former participants.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So if I were to just sum up our conversation for the last part, it's that there are young people are involved not just as participants, but as active coaches, teachers, trainers who are helping expand these programs, but also how many who were part of these programs as participants, as beneficiaries have now also, these programs also help them prepare for careers outside of sport, be it, let's say, the life skills that they learn through these programs or the fitness skills that they develop through these programs. So young people are then, there are more and more avenues for young people to be involved, let's say through fellowships, and also be a part of the program and creating and conceptualizing what it is that the program aims to achieve. So not just as those who are, creating as in the playing field, but are really creating the playing field altogether. So as administrators, as those who are project managers, as those who are also actively running academies, and so on and so forth. So it opens, the ecosystem has opened a lot of avenues for young people to be involved. And I think there are some questions about how do you apply to the fellowship. So what we'll do is give the last 5 minutes to Kshitij to just talk about how is it that you apply to the fellowship and what are the things that you need to keep in mind. If you could do that in English and Hindi, I think that would be helpful, because I also received a message to talk about how do you apply for the fellowship in Hindi. Sai, you have a...
Yeah, if there is a quick 1 minute, I'll just add to what you shared, Mridul. Following up to, in terms of diversifying opportunities, we have to also look beyond just as a coach or PE teacher as well, and as part of our experience, there are these youth who have been through the program are not just coaches, but they're also the ones, like you said, project managers who are coordinators for specific regions, and those who are responsible for managing the leagues as well, organizing right from scratch till the end. They are the ones who have come through these communities, are putting almost 30 teams together, organizing the league schedules, allotting referees, all these. So it's coaches. And in administrative roles, you have the project coordinators, project managers, you have league coordinators, league managers, And there are few who have gone away from sport as well. They did volunteer, they did learn from this youth leadership experience, but now they're working in IT fields, in Bangalore and Hyderabad. But they do show that value, that what they have gained from the sport participation. It's not just only through education, but they also value that their time in sport participation and the voluntary leadership opportunities that has created has helped them to become well aware about themselves, about their skills, and build their confidence, their self-efficacy, and eventually getting better employment opportunities.
Great, thank you, Sai. And Moshi, if you could add, plus also I think address some of the questions. So there are two questions. I'll just sum it up for all of us. One is, and I think we also the third one I believe can be encapsulated within the same one. One is, how is the sports ecosystem working with underrepresented groups like people with disabilities who are not generally well represented in the sports ecosystem? So if you could shed some light on that. I know some of the organizations might have programs on that. Two, how is it that the way in which funding operates, how does that play a role, especially CSR, but also from a sustainability perspective? So I'm just trying to club the last two questions. If you could also address some of the responses, and I think we'll give the last 5 minutes to Kshitij to just talk about the essential criteria for applying for this fellowship. Go ahead.
Okay. So on the disability question, so as far as Piramal Foundation is concerned, we are not like within sports, we are not really working right now. We're developing that programming, that how do we include sports for children with special needs. But I know Anantapura Sports Academy works, has figured how to do that. There are also organizations like Umoya Sports that are working specifically on including children with special needs, and how does sports address that. So there is work happening in it, but it has to become more widespread. That's number one. Number two, it's the brilliant question on CSR funding. It's a challenge that all of us face every day. And just to give some sense of numbers, जितना भी CSR fund आता है, मतलब social development में, उसमें से सिर्फ 8% sports पे आता है. So that is the figure, that only 1% of that money comes to sports. And even in that 1%, the question that you're asking, that, the challenges that we face, that how do you show impact of sports? Because one way of looking at impact, which has been the traditional way, that kitne apne athletes banaye, right? But the thing that we are all talking about, which is sports for development, the parameters have to be different. And this is where I was feeling a little uncomfortable that we haven't actually talked about health as one of the aspects. I mean, our country is unfortunately the diabetes capital of the world, the cancer capital of the world. And those things will only change when we fundamentally become more physically active. And fundamentally, we create those habits in schools. And that's where I think the youth can play such a big role. If all of you join this sector, join hands, take this as a movement, that we need to actually become physically active, because we need to have a healthier lifespan and we need to have good health. And that probably is also somewhere answering that how the CSR funding also has to kind of shift towards parameters like this, that are people participating more? Are people feeling more motivated to participate in sports and physical activities? And if you're able to increase those numbers, here is a fund for you. So, how that in some way you that could shape the ecosystem.
Great, thank you, Moshi. Uma, Sai, you also have the floor in case you would like to chime in before I hand it over to Kshitij.
Well, if you want, yeah. I mean, we have been again fortunate to be working with children with disabilities over the last 15 years or so. I mean, the organization, thanks to the organization's activities, that already children with disabilities are part of the organization's program, where there's specific focus on rehabilitation, education, ensuring the children with disabilities have access to quality education, either through supplementary schools or through higher schools and college education. So whereas with sport, we did start with Special Olympics, where facilitating sport participation opportunities for children with intellectual disabilities and children with hearing and speech disabilities over the last 15 years. Specifically, in the last 2.5 years, we have designed an approach on how we are going to integrate all sports, as many as possible, where all children with all disabilities that are in the program have access to these sports. So predominantly now we are working with children with physical disabilities in wheelchair tennis and para athletics, as well as Special Olympics and sports for hearing and speech impaired children. So in these areas, we are using multiple sports. I mean, we don't have to go into the details of the individual sports, but we're using multiple sports where trying to mainstream disability, particularly through sport.
Thank you. Thank you. Uma, any thoughts on either of the three questions? I think we have yeah. I believe some of them have been addressed already, so please. Yeah.
At the moment at Pratham, we are not, I mean, because sports is relatively new at Pratham, we are not including or not very sure about how to work with children with disabilities, although we have an inclusive education program. But given the wide spectrum of disabilities, I think it'll be nice to learn from others and, like I said, join hands with organizations that are already working in this sector to bring in that intervention. But I absolutely agree with what Molashree said, that the need of the hour is to play and do so much physical movement. I think COVID has taught us and brought to light the huge gap in not just physical literacy, but also the levels of health in India. And given this, the group of this today's webinar, it may feel like everybody in India is playing, but that is not the reality. So we really need to encourage that. And I think now, given how I mean, in the urban areas, I think that need is even more, given the lack of playgrounds and school buildings being this one vertical structure. Thankfully, rural area schools still have playgrounds, but that does not ensure that the playgrounds are being utilized well, or that there is a gendered, I mean, there is still a gendered use of that open space, right? So a lot more work needs to be done, but I'm sure everybody in this panel or in the webinar today is working towards that, or at least believes in this vision. So that's all, and over to Kshitij.
It's great to hear. Kshitij, you have the floor, talking about how a lot of the young people here can be directly involved in the fellowship, as well as I'm sure what we can do is share a few resources about some other ways young people are engaged throughout the organizations that are represented here. I'm sure the DSF colleagues will help with that. So if you could shed some light on what's the criteria and also how does one apply in both English and Hindi, please. Thank you.
बिल्कुल. तो जो सवाल पूछे हैं, विजय is a fellow from the first cohort, and he worked with children with disabilities during his fellowship, and he really wanted to he had the passion for sports and for working with children with disabilities. So Vijay, I don't know who else better than you sharing, कैसे वो spaces create करें जहाँ पे हम or inclusive for physical activity for the people with disabilities, right? And I see many other fellows from both our cohorts here, Ruchi, Nitish, Pradeep, Imran, Ankit, all of them are here, and they have been working with people with disabilities. Just to answer what Vijay has been asking, and good to see that that we are able to think, because he worked with a set of children there in Kapadwanj, children with disabilities, and now we are trying to think how as an ecosystem that issue is being addressed. So yeah, I think Vijay is the one who has worked with children and then now asking this question. So just to give a perspective to all our panelists. And about the fellowship, yes, if people are interested in asking about it, Of course, you will find all the details, everything on our website, on our social media. And I think if you're registered for this webinar, we will also be sending you the details through email. But yeah, this is a full-time fellowship. It's a 2-year program. And अगर आप स्पोर्ट्स में इंटरेस्टेड हैं, आप स्पोर्ट्स को लेके पैशनेट हैं, और खुद से आगे स्पोर्ट्स को लेके जाना चाहते हैं, स्पोर्ट्स से लोगों को जोड़ना चाहते हैं, बच्चों के साथ काम करना चाहते हैं, जिससे बच्चों को मदद करना चाहते हैं सीखने में स्पोर्ट्स के थ्रू, तो ये फेलोशिप में आप डेफिनेटली अगर आप इंटरेस्टेड है तो अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. It's an opportunity for it's a platform that we are trying to create for young people who are looking for such opportunities, not just playing themselves, but contributing through their experience of playing sports and taking it to the communities, taking it to the children. And we have tried to curate a program where हम हर तरह का एक exposure, whether it is working with children, with communities, with some, perspective building, reading material, and exposure to other organizations. So just to create, a knowledge and experience of understanding the sports for development ecosystem. And then they can, of course, as all of us have been saying, that they can become potential leaders into taking the agenda for sports for development forward during and after they complete the fellowship program. और हाँ, अप्लाई करने के लिए आप हमारी वेबसाइट देख सकते हैं, और हम आपको हमारे सोशल मीडिया पे भी आप उसको देख सकते हैं. उसके डेडलाइंस और एप्लीकेशंस मेरे ख्याल से अभी ओपन है, पर डेडलाइंस वगैरह के लिए आप यू कैन चेक द वेबसाइट, और हम आपको ईमेल के द्वारा, अगर आपने हमें रजिस्टर किया है वेबिनार के लिए, तो हम वो भेज देंगे आपको. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Kshitij. I believe we're nearing the end of the webinar. Sai, you have raised your hand physically, I see. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mridul. Sorry for but it's actually directly to Kshitij. I know, I've seen recently that many fellows are working in different projects across India from Sport for Transformation Fellowship. We were fortunate that one of the groups from the Sport for Transformation, a group of fellows have visited and have seen, and I see few of them on the call now on the webinar. That's very nice to see. So I don't know, we might have missed out on the exposure, the internship opportunities. As we are exclusively working on the disability, we would like to please, have the opportunity for few fellows to have work in the disability space, because mainstreaming disability through sport, it's a very, in its early stage. Sport in itself, we focus on the elite level, and particularly in disability sport also, we focus a lot on the elite level. So I think we need more and more practitioners, more and more professionals who are interested at the entry level. So if any fellows are interested in the disability space, we are more than happy to have them, for the internship periods and all. So I just wanted to share that quickly.
Absolutely.
Kshitij.
And yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Sai. I think because we had, only a number of fellows who could go to different organizations, I think we had some conversation with ASA team, but it didn't kind of go forward. But just to point out that all three other organizations, Piramal Foundation, Pratham, and SSA, all three are hosting our fellows from the first cohort as for their internship in the last semester. So yeah, so that is also part of the experience that comes through the fellowship program. And I'm sure, Sai, I think going ahead in the next cohorts, we will be able to collaborate more with ASA as well. I'm pretty sure about it. Yeah.
Thank you, Kshitij.
Great, thank you. And I believe we're at the end of the scheduled time today. And I see there are some questions coming in which Moitri has already addressed. But in case you have more questions, agar aapke aur sawal hain, please feel free to write to them, to the Dani Sports Foundation team. They will forward it to the speakers and try to get you the answers that you're looking for. So that's one. But thank you again to all of you for such a lively discussion, talking about the sports for development ecosystem, talking about how young people, a lot of whom have tuned in, are already, some of whom are already part of the fellowship, some who aspire to be a part of the fellowship, can be a part of this ecosystem in general. We look forward to continuing these conversations. So please feel free to write to the team with your feedback and any suggestions, and if you have any questions about any of the fellowships, whether it's the Adani Sports Foundation's SFT fellowship or the Gandhi fellowship or any other programs that ASA and Pratham run, please feel free to write to them and they will direct your queries. But yes, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to the DSF team for having us here and discuss this quite important topic. And it's great to see a lot of interest and a lot of people interested in knowing more about what we can do to really grow the ecosystem. Again, thank you so much for joining. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to the participants. And we will see you again, hopefully very soon.
Thank
Yes,
you.
absolutely. Thank you, everyone, all 4 of you, for taking out time, coming here, talking to the people. Thank you for the participants and amazing questions. Great. I think we'll go through the chats and see what sports people play. And yeah. And looking forward to engage again, meet all of you again. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mridul, Uma, Monshri, Sai. Looking forward to catch up again.
Thank you, Kshitij. Thank you, Mridul.
Thank you. Thank
Bye
you,
bye.
Kshitij.
Thank
Thank you,
everyone.
Mridul.
Yeah.
Thank you, Uma.
Thank
Monshri.
you. This was
Thank you.
great meeting and interacting with all of you. Thanks, Kshitij, and thanks, Divya.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Kshitij, great. I think the participants asked some great questions, just brought in a lot more angles. So thank you to all the participants. And keep playing. Kheloge, kudoge, banoge lajawab.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye.
Hey.
Great.
Okay. Bye bye. See you, everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah.